Hello, and thank you for stopping by. In today's video, I'm working on this Briggs & Stratton flathead no-start engine. I'm going to show you how I adjust and lap the valves to get the compression back to get this running. I've already taken the cylinder head off, so now let's get started with the rest. To start with, we have to get the muffler off. To get the muffler off, you have to bend these tabs back and get these two bolts out. You got to be careful taking these bolts out. A lot of times they'll break off right into the head. Just want to flatten these out so you can get a wrench or a socket on the bolts. Oh, these happen to be loose. Okay. When reinstalling this, don't forget the gasket. There's two gaskets. I'm going to clean this up, and to adjust the valves we have to take this breather cover off. Alright, now that I have it cleaned up somewhat, let's get this off. Makes it a lot easier to work on when you have it cleaned up. Okay. And here's what we're looking at. According to the manual, the intake valve should have a clearance of 005 to 007, and the exhaust should be 009 to 0011. And you check the clearance when it's on top dead center. I'm going to check it with a feeler gauge, and if the clearance isn't enough, which I don't believe it is, I'll be removing these springs and pulling the valve out to grind it down. So to clean this out over here, I just cut a piece of sandpaper, wrapped it around the valve. Let me get this in here. And I'm just going to grind this back and forth. I'm going to do this a few times to clean up that seat. Then I'm going to be taking the valve out. I'll be cleaning this up on the wire wheel. I'll be grinding this down to get to the specs. Oh, as far as the specs, when I check this, the minimum that it should be is 0.005. I had to force the feeler gauge in there. 006 couldn't make it, and this one here was way off, wasn't even close. So they do have to be ground down. If you don't have a grinder, you could use a file on this, but sure you grind this flat. So again, I'm going to clean this up on the wire wheel, grind this down, check the specs, and when you're checking the specs, you want to make sure you're at top dead center and you're holding this valve down. So once I clean this up, I'll be back to show you how I check for the valve clearance. Give you a little view on this. Here's the before. Here's the after. Look how nice and shiny that is, nice and clean. We had a little snafu over here. I had to take the camera in to upload a few videos. I have a couple of projects going on at once, and the memory was getting full. And I videoed this, but I don't know what happened to it. When removing the valve, I bought this valve tool 7 years back off eBay. I bought it used. I believe I paid $27 to $37. I don't know what the prices new were going for at the time, but it must have been less for me to buy it used. I haven't used it. As a matter of fact, I can't remember the last time I did a valve job on one of these L heads. Usually I would just get a screwdriver in here and twist it around What you're doing is to move this tab on the bottom to a position where the valve could come through. So in other words, the valve is going through the head, it's in the spring, and it's locked in, either with a screwdriver or this tool or whatever you rig up. So the valve is locked in there, the spring has a tension on it. You're squeezing the spring down so you could move this to the open position on the tab. Let me do it this way. So what you're doing is you're compressing the spring so you can move it to the open position on that tab, and then you can slide the valve out from the top. Sorry I don't have the video of me doing it, and I didn't use this tool to get it out. I will use this tool to put it in. I just use a screwdriver and a pair of needle nose to get it out. All right, with that said, now here's where we get into the business. These valves should be ground down. I don't have the tool to grind it down. I'm not taking it to a machine shop. I don't know if this engine's even going to work, but I am going to lap it. And what I did, I went out and I bought some new lapping compound. This is Permatex. Now the directions on here, probably can't pick it up from the camera. It says here that this compound has a range of 220 to 120. It starts at 120, and then if you want to get a finer grit to it, says you could add water to it. I never did that with the old compound I was using. Can't remember what it was. And I also bought new lapping tools. Now the reason I picked this one, the price was pretty decent. They gave you a large one, a small one, and they gave you these extra suction cups. I don't know how many times I'll be using it, but if something should go wrong with one of them, you know, there's some extra. Again, I have the links for this all down below. This probably would be easier if you drained the oil and sat this engine up this way, due to the fact that the head's horizontal in the valves. So I'm going to try it the way it is, and if it gives me a little static, then I'm just going to go drain the oil. If this starts, it has to be changed anyway. It started. This has been out here a few days. I'm just going to wipe this down. I'm going to put a little bit of this compound on the edge of this valve, put the valve back in, and just rotate it back and forth until it seats. Now another part of the video that didn't show, I already gapped this, but once this is ground down, this gap will be a little less than what it is now, so that'll have to be rechecked. Okay, let's get this going. I'm going to apply a little of this lapping compound on the valve. Oop. That's a lot more than I need. Oh, way more than what I need. You know what I'll do? Just get it on this other one. This is way more than what's necessary. It just slipped on the way out. You can feel this is pretty gritty. Let me get this cap back on here. I cleaned the top of this valve off with some carburetor cleaner, so the suction cup would stick a little better. And here we go now. If you were going straight up and down with this, it works a lot better. You know what? This rubber on this stick is spinning. So I'm going to do this for a couple of minutes. Then I'm going to do the top one the same, and I'll show you what it looks like when I'm done. See, the seats cleaned out really nice. The valves are cleaned up. Earlier I cleaned up all the carbon that was under here. So we'll get this in. Big item. After you lap these valves, you want to make sure you clean this up really good. I cleaned this out several times with some carburetor cleaner, wiped it out, kept going over and over it. because if you leave that lopping compound in there, it'll get down into your valve guides, and you know what'll happen at that point. Before we get the springs on, we have to check the valve lash again. Now, this was a little too tight, and I brought it back to the garage, ground it down on the grinder. I was using a file, but I wasn't getting enough off, but now I have a little too much. This is at 0.009. That's the max for this valve. The specs for this are between 0.005 to 0.009. So this might have a little tapping here. Now, the exhaust valve, it goes from 0.009 to 0.0012. This is 9. I believe I have that at 10. And 10 is within the specs. The intake valve, like I said, I'm going to have some tapping with that. Here's the 10. Yeah, 10's a little tight. Actually, 10 fits on top over here. Yeah, so we have a 0.0010 on top and like a 0.009 down here. Let me see something. Let's see something. Let's just switch these around. This might solve my problem right here, just switching them around. Both of these are steel. When you have the overhead valves, one's aluminum, the intake, and the exhaust is steel. That's way out. That's not going to work. I don't know if you picked up that gap. Oh. Okay, so this is set. Nothing else I could do about that. Now to use the tool. Get your spring. Okay, you have to open this up where the spring just fits in. Set the retainer in there. The spring on top of the retainer. Tighten it up. Compress that spring. Okay, and you can see where the opening, where the valves are going to go in, is to the back. And once the valve goes through, we'll push it forward to lock it in and pull the tool out. Let's see how we're going to do this. Again, this is the first time I'm using this tool. Oh. Well, let me tell you, that makes this job a lot easier. I don't know about pulling it out because I haven't pulled it out with this tool. I used a screwdriver, but installing it, can't beat this. All right, I'm going to install the other spring, put the cover on, and then I'll bring you back. Couple of things. When you're putting this valve cover back on, this is also a breather. You want to make sure there's a little indentation up here, that this goes to the top, because you could turn this around and put it on backwards. You see there's a little notch up here that goes to the top. Now I'm going to install the muffler, and when we install the muffler, remember we had those two gaskets, and this over here is the automatic choke. So if I'm not mistaken, the gasket goes in front of the choke and one goes behind, then the muffler gets tightened up. After this, I'm going to install the head. Should have a new head gasket for this. And if you have this engine, according to the specs, the torque on the head bolts is 140 inch-pounds, which is equivalent to roughly 11.6 foot-pounds. I do have a previous video on this mower. If you want to see how to take this apart and put it back together, the link for it will be up above. Once I have this all together, we'll check to see if this is going to start and whether lapping these valves will give us back the compression so we can use this machine. We have it all together. Let's see if she's going to start and cut. Okay, she starts, she cuts, and you saw how tall that grass was, and it's cutting it with the old blade that was on there. I did sharpen it, but that blade looks more like a saw than it does a lawnmower blade. On top of that, it has the dirty filter in it still, so it needs the oil change, the filter change, the new blade, which I already bought, and I have the link for all this down in the description. Well, that's a wrap. If you enjoyed this video, found it useful, let me know by giving it a like. If you have any questions or comments, post them down below. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe. Hit that Joe Z icon. And not to miss my new videos as I upload them, be sure to ring the bell. Until next time, stay safe.